A lot of people, when they watch Evangelion, they complain. They're like, oh, Shinji, he's such a pussy and he's crying and, he should just get into the mech and fight those angels. I'm like, he's a 14-year-old boy whose father was never there for him and's like, hey, you gotta go save the world now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Otaku Talk Podcast. I am your host, Callum, aka Anime Sins.
And I am your co-host, Eric Van Wilderman. I have a Let's Play channel, and I also have an anime channel that I recently started. Our guest star today is...
Hello, everyone. I'm SloanTheFemaleOtaku, and on my channel, I upload every single day with anime reviews of episode anime reviews and manga chapters. I also make vlogs, a seasonal AMV to wrap up the season, and ranking videos. Pretty awesome to be here.
Well, that is a lot of content on your channel, evidently. And guys, if you are interested in any of our voices and you like us, then as always, you guys can find our channel in the description below.
Subscribe.
So be sure to subscribe and like and comment. So for our first topic for the first episode, what I'd like to do is throw out a question to Sloan. And it is, why is anime such a big part of your life?
Well, originally, it really wasn't a big part of my life because, for a while, like most people, we didn't really know the difference between anime and a cartoon. But when I did find out the difference, I was just like, oh, okay, this is cool. All right, that's nice. Like, I first discovered, at least I first realized what anime was when I was in 5th grade. I accidentally came upon it on YouTube. And I watched a few episodes of... oddly enough, ecchi anime.
Nice.
Yeah. I didn't see what the problem was with all the pantsuit shots. I didn't know there was a problem. I was just watching it because I thought it was entertaining. So
was it like a comedy ecchi kind of where it's laugh out loud, or was it really fan servicey? Like, oh, there's some nice little panties. Like, was it kind of perverted ecchi stuff?
I wouldn't say it was too perverted. Like the first one that I saw, and again, I just came up this like completely on accident. Like I don't remember what I was originally searching for, but I came across this underrated harem anime called Ayoriashi. That isn't too fan servicey, but then afterwards I came across Rosario Vampire, and that one's thanks for all the pantsuit shots.
Yes.
I watched it for the action because with kids shows it's that typical villain of the week stuff, and that's what Rosario Vampire was. So I just thought, okay, cool. It has different art style, but overall it's pretty fun.
Nice.
And then from there I got into another harem anime called Shuffle. And if you know Shuffle, it does have quite the tone shift in the latter half of the anime, but I still thought it was interesting. I never seen anything like it. Mm-hmm. And I was new to working YouTube, so I didn't really know how to go to another anime because I came across all of these by accident.
Yeah.
Like they were like on like the recommendations side of the screen on YouTube and stuff. So I kind of just clicked randomly.
Do you remember what year that was around? Because YouTube's been really anal about copyright and stuff lately, especially with anime. Like having a whole series on YouTube used to be a thing, didn't it?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. That was in 2008.
Yeah, that must have been before the copyright fiasco and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep, 2008. And so then I stopped because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to look for new anime episodes, so I stopped. And then like in 2013, I was like a sophomore in high school. I was just like, hey, remember that one anime you watched when you were in 5th grade? What was that called? Oh, yeah. And of course, then I was more familiar with how to work the internet. So then I was able to find, the episodes that I wanted to find and stuff like that from different websites. Now I use legal websites.
I said all harem, I'm assuming.
Oh, man, actually.
I'm sensing a theme.
Like the first year I was getting back into anime, which was in 2013, 2014. I would strictly only watch romance anime. And a lot of that romance anime falls into the harem ecchi category.
Yeah.
So I watched High School of the Dead, and I watched
nice.
High School DxD. But I also watched some other actual classics like Fruits Basket and Ouran High School Host Club. Those were very nice.
It's funny hearing you talk about the classics being around High School Host Club, and I don't want to sound like pretentious by saying it, but I'm kind of a relic. I'm kind of old. And when I got into anime too, it's funny that you mentioned the romance aspect of it, because I got into anime when I was young. I was in grade 2, and my first anime was Sailor Moon when it was playing on TV. And I was really into like Tuxedo Mask because I saw him as being a romantic, and I was like, "Oh, he's so romantic! I want to be like that." And I figured myself as being like this like kind of romantic second grade. I was really young, and it's kind of adorable looking back on it now. It really is. But I was really into the romantic side of anime too when I was younger. Obviously, it was a different time. There was some different anime, but that was a big part of what drew me into it as well. So it's interesting hearing you say that.
Yeah, and like. Well, I remember when I watched High School of the Dead, I was just like, whoa, this is so badass. I need more anime like this. And then that's when one of my friends, he recommended me Attack on Titan. And this was 2014 now. So Attack on Titan, had already ended. But, the hype was still going on all over the world still.
It still is. Attack on Titan is, everyone knows it. Like, the people in Korea only know certain anime, the big ones. But Attack on Titan, everyone knows that, even in South Korea.
Exactly.
I gotta say, it's such a good series as well. I absolutely love Attack on Titan.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta read the manga. I hear, the manga, it ends a little bit differently. Like the way season 1 ends, it doesn't quite end like that. I really want to read that at some point. I hear it's good.
The manga's quite far along, I think, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, that's why we got season 2.
Whenever it comes out.
Can't wait. Yeah, that should be about summer this year, I heard.
Well, I mean, they keep on pushing it back. So.
They do, yeah, it's a shame. So anyway, Sloan, continue. You were saying why anime is such a big part of your life.
Yeah, so then when I got into Attack on Titan, that's when I got through my weeb stage. So during the weeb stage, I would, actually, talk like a weeb, saying, kawaii desu, doing the peace sign, stuff like that. All my friends were into Attack on Titan, so we were just all like, yo, let's all cosplay as Attack on Titan characters, and we did. My first cosplay ever was as Mikasa.
Oh, nice. That's a badass cosplay. That's cool.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you. Yeah, and then from there, I watched Sword Art Online, and I thought Sword Art Online was the greatest anime ever made. And
you're going to get a lot of hate for that.
I know, I did at the time. Now I realize the error of my ways.
Well, season 1 had its problems, but it was still like a very watchable, entertaining anime. And then season 2 happened, and I was like, oh, okay, incest, tentacles, like, you just had to go there, didn't you? Like, come on.
Do you know what? Yeah, I actually kind of like Sword Art Online, though. I mean, I'm one of these people that, I don't mind saying it, but, pretty much every anime that you've just read off, Sloan, I watched and enjoyed. High School of the Dead, High School DxD. A lot of people say, oh, they're crap anime. And I was just like, why? They're awesome. They got action. They got ichi. They're brilliant. Yeah.
I personally don't think Sword Art Online is a bad anime. I think that it has entertaining arcs and some not so entertaining arcs.
Yeah.
But so throughout the weeb years, weeb year, I should say, I also was really into Hetalia and Black Butler, the typical female otaku stuff. I know.
Hetalia, Black Butler, that's the combo.
Yep.
Combo wombo.
Exactly. Yeah. Then it wasn't until YouTube, like when I got into anime YouTubers, that I started actually learning more about different types of anime, what makes a good anime, basically what makes a good story and what doesn't. And then that's how I got out of my weeb stage. I was just like,
okay.
Sword Art Online isn't the greatest anime ever made.
Hey, what kind of YouTubers, by the way? I'm curious about this.
It was mainly Giguk.
Oh, yeah, Giguk is awesome.
Yeah, he's good. He's very good.
Yeah, Giguk's...
he's got a great recording voice, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He is a great editor as well. Mad props.
Yeah, he certainly does. Watching his videos they flow so well. There's so much going on.
That must be so much editing involved.
Yeah.
Like thousands of clips or something. He's changing it like every 3 seconds. It's mad.
Yeah.
Exactly. You gotta avoid the copyright.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one way to avoid it.
And I also watched a bunch of anime abridges.
Oh, yeah, his Evangelion abridged is so good. I laughed my ass off so hard at that. It's so good.
By the way, what does that mean? I genuinely don't know. Abridged.
It's a parody.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
And abridged, it means a shortened version of it. Like an abridged version of a novel's kind of like the Cliff Notes version, just a summary almost.
Ah.
Yeah, so a shortened version.
I've heard it said before, but I've actually just never been bothered to actually look at what it meant.
Yeah, like if you don't have the time to watch the full thing, just watch an abridged version to get the basic idea of something, a book, a movie, an anime, whatever, right?
Right. Cool.
Yeah, so then from there I started exploring different genres and found some great anime. Like I watched, that's when I watched Death Note.
Nice.
And I watched Psycho Pass. And then I watched, which is now my favorite anime of all time, Durarara.
Nice. I'm actually watching Psycho Pass right now. I'm almost at the end of season 1.
No spoilers.
I know. Okay, I'm not going to say anything. I got to the point where like that one plot twist happened, but I'm not going to say what it is. And I'm super excited to finish watching it. But
yeah, because I'm like 4 episodes in, so I don't know nothing yet.
God, I love it. It's so good. Oh my god. And the person that made it, like his name's Gen Urobuchi, and the reason why I'm watching it is because I played one of his old visual novels called Sayano Uta, which is like a hyper violent, really surreal. It's one of the craziest horror experiences I've ever had in my life. And I was like, what mind could make this? Does this person make anime? And then I was like, oh, Psycho Pass and what's the other one? Magical Girl Madoka, I think.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that one, and I hear that one's great.
Madoka Magica, yeah.
Madoka Magica, yeah. I really... See, I've wanted to buy it on Blu-ray because I know it's going to be good, but apparently they messed up the Blu-ray sales, so I got to just, like, download it or find it somewhere else.
It's on Netflix. Well, at least in America. I
know, I gotta have Korean Netflix. It sucks.
Oh man. Yeah, so then that's when I started also collecting like merchandise and stuff like that, and anime then started, becoming a big part of my life when I started realizing how much more there is to anime, which is not just, action, not just romance, how it could tell deep stories. And my favorite parts about anime is it can be relatable. Even if it's not slice of life, it could still be relatable. Like I relate to Durarara in like so many ways.
Yeah, and, I like that about anime as well. That's one thing that drew me in. When I was getting into it, there were a lot of fantasy animes, like getting sucked away to another world, like some of them like El Hazard, and some sci-fi-ish ones like Tenchi Muyo. And I really liked it because they were in these otherworldly worlds, but they were real characters, and the characters had a lot of heart and soul to them. And even though they were off in crazy fantasy worlds, other dimensions, wherever the flavor of the day was, the characters were very relatable, and that's what makes me feel so attached. But it's cool because it makes you feel like you have this link into these other worlds, these other fantasy worlds and stuff. And that really drew me in as well when I was getting into it.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's pretty much it. I just love how I can relate to the characters no matter what setting they're in. And I love the writing, too. It really helps because I actually am a film major. So, yeah, so I pay attention to that kind of stuff. I pay attention to, like, everything when I watch, an anime and stuff when it comes, not just, writing, also, like, character development and, edit art style, animation, soundtrack. I used to not pay attention to the soundtrack until I watched Kill la Kill. Then I was like, whoa, okay, soundtrack is actually pretty cool. So,
I find the soundtrack for Attack on Titan is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's one of those where I've got almost every song, because I just think like it's like an artwork in and of itself. The amount of effort that must have gone into doing that soundtrack is beautiful.
Yeah, the soundtrack really brings it to life. A good soundtrack, it can make or break some scenes in anime. If the soundtrack is off, it can...
Even if the scene is really good in and of itself.
Yeah, it can really ruin it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Eric, how about you then? Why is anime such a big part of your life?
Well, it's hard for me to talk about why anime is a big part of my life without talking about how I got into gaming as well. I was really big. I was really big into escapism when I was young. My family was mildly dysfunctional, but me and my brother, we were very close. and we came together on things like anime and video games. So the way I got into Japanese storytelling was originally Final Fantasy VI. It's a JRPG. I'm a huge gamer, and I'm huge into Japanese games, and FF6 brought me into a Japanese way of storytelling. And the reason why I liked it is I was quite young, but the Japanese style of storytelling for me at the time, I was really used to like Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters, but those kinds of things at the time, they treat you like children, you know? They treat it like the audience is just for kids. But with this Japanese style of storytelling, they treated you like you were more of an adult. They treated you with respect, and in that regards, it really drew me into, at first, Final Fantasy VI, and then Sailor Moon was on TV, and me and my brother would rush home from lunch every day at school, because we had the option of eating lunch at school, but Sailor Moon was on at lunch, so we couldn't eat at school. So we'd rush home, we'd be like, grab our backpacks, we're like, oh my god, we only have 5 minutes to get home, so we'd like run home, watch Sailor Moon, eat a sandwich, and go back to school. We did that for a while, and we're like, this is really great, this is like our favorite cartoon. And this is anime, but I lived in a small city in the north of Canada. And looking back at it now, I'm actually surprised that we got access to as much anime as we did, because I was like in buttfuck nowhere, really. But there was a VHS rental place near our home, and some anime started trickling in. We're like, Mom, oh my god, it's like Sailor Moon. You gotta rent this for us. And my mom rented it for us, and one of the first ones she rented was Ranma One Half, the second movie of Ranma One Half, which I don't know if you guys are familiar. Ranma?
No,
haven't heard of that one.
So Ranma is it's an old series, basically a character, the main character Ranma One Half. It's called One Half because he fell into this cursed Jusenkyo Springs, and when he gets splashed with cold water, he becomes a female, but when he gets splashed with warm water, he becomes a male again. And anyone who falls into these springs, a lot of the other characters fall into them, and they become animals when they get splashed with cold water, and then with warm water they become human again. And it's a comedy series, kind of has mild harem parts to it. There's martial arts fighting, a little bit of everything. It was really cool. And so my mom rents it, and we're sitting down to watch it. In one of the first scenes, this old man, this like perverted grandfather in the family, he steals Ranma's shirt, and then he douses her with cold water, and her tits are just hanging out. And I'm in like grade 3 watching this with my mom, and I'm like, me and my brother look at each other like, oh fuck, like, is this appropriate? Oh, but my mom just starts laughing, and she's just howling. She's like, this is so funny. And so me and my brother just started laughing too, and it was like a really funny scene, and we just enjoyed the movie together, right? There was some sexual humor, but not like too strong. It was just like, oh my god, she's running around topless because the perverted old man stole her shirt, right? And you know, it was a really good story. We were young, like anything was good at the time. But you know, we had a really good time together, and just from that time on, we started renting like any anime VHS that would come to our small city, right? And so we just watched a little bit of everything. You know, there were, like I said, it treated you like an adult, the humor style. There was like some sexual humor. It didn't go too far, but I liked that about it, because that's just an aspect of being a human, you know? There's nothing to really shy about there. These days, you know, when I'm watching anime and whatnot, there's a lot of sexual humor, but I think it's hilarious. Yeah. I think it's absolutely hilarious if done right. Yeah. You know, I think there's some fan servicey moments where I'm like, okay guys, I really liked your world building, but I'm tired of looking at panties now. Let's like, you know, let's get on with the story. But you know, like during Ranma, it was tastefully done, and so it wasn't a big deal watching it with my mom at the time. And we started watching some other ones, like some fantasy ones we really liked. One called Record of Lotus War. It was beautiful. It was all hand-drawn animations. It was really cool seeing that come to life. I was huge into, like I said, escapism, fantasy worlds, but also realistic characters as well. And I really liked that one because the main character, he wasn't strong. It wasn't like some shonen where you know the main character is going to become super strong and he's going to take on everyone. Like the last fight in the show is him fighting a character that he's completely outmatched, but it's just a matter of like holding him off for a certain amount of time, right? And it was cool seeing a character not just become super overpowered like that. So it was it was a really interesting fantasy anime. I was really into it. And obviously, like I said, remember there was the romantic aspects of it too. I was romantic. And there was some harem anime that I really liked, like Tenchi Muyo, El Hazard is another one. Tenchi Muyo is a very sci-fi one where it's like a normal boy. All of a sudden aliens land and Earth has never seen aliens, but the alien empire is, very sexy and anime girls and like a harem starts. They all fall in love with them. And it was cool because he goes on like adventures in space. It's really neat. El Hazard was a fantasy one where he gets whisked away to another world. And one of my favorite ones, harem anime, was, and this is another one where it does treat you very much like an adult. Like, I keep on saying that, but that was really important to me coming from a household that was really shoving down children's cartoons down my throat for a very long time. And I just felt like I was, don't mean to sound pretentious, but I was a little bit above that kind of stuff. Anyways, I was a smart kid, but something happened along the way and I became kind of stupid somehow. But, as a kid, I was really smart, and then like high school hit, and I was like, physics is impossible. Oh my god, I used to be able to do math so well. So Saber Marionette J was a really cool anime where this ship has basically left Earth with the remnants of humanity, and they have to find a new place because Earth is desolate, and the ship crashes and only 6 males survive. And so they start to clone themselves genetically, and eventually 300 years later, there's just like a world of only males, and the only females are these androids that they've made. But there's these special androids that were made like many hundreds of years ago, and this one male character finds said android, but these androids have emotions. There was like a special maiden chip that was put into them to have emotions, and they're special too because they have actual like functioning human parts to them. And so it's all about like him living with a harem of these marionettes, and they all love him, right? And about what humanity's gonna do about like repopulating the planet. But there's also, like 6 different kingdoms with their own lifeless marionettes, and there's all sorts of battles and interesting stuff. There's a flamboyantly gay neighbor that loves the main character, and he's like, why do you love the marionettes? You should love me. And, there's a lot of comedy too. It was really...
Sounds really good.
Yeah, it was really good. It was a really interesting anime for the time because as well, I didn't even know, like, gay people existed. I was quite young still. I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's kind of like a cool... It's just cool that anime was so open, that it was no holds barred. Just, if they wanted to tell a story, they would tell us. They would tell a story and they would do whatever they want. They didn't think, is this going to be okay for the children? They didn't think like that. They just made it, right?
Very true, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what really sucked me in, right? Yeah. I'm gonna swing it over to you, Callum, and ask you. I've been talking. We can bounce back and forth like towards the end, but I want to know like what got you into anime.
Okay, well, basically, when I was in the early years of high school, which was for me in the very early 2000s onwards, I came across Pokemon, and that used to be on one of our only channels that we had, because the UK was a little bit like Canada in the regards of what you're saying, in that we just really did not have that much. Mm-hmm. So Pokemon was the first one that I came across, and I watched it from the first episode, and I couldn't come home at lunch as I was about an hour and a half walk from my school.
Oh, no.
But I remember racing home and just loving to watch Pokemon. And then I ended up getting on the Game Boy, and it was just like the best game ever back then.
Nice.
And that sort of led on to watching Dragon Ball Z when that was on. And these are like the first season. And I absolutely loved it. And I remember that I would just, when the break was on, I'd run into the kitchen and I'd just like ramble off to my mum, just like what had happened in the first half. And she'd just be like, okay, yeah, and then I'd just run back in there and just carry on with the second half. I absolutely loved it. So basically when high school was coming to an end, Pokemon and that, I don't know, maybe they were on, maybe the seasons had finished, or for whatever reason, I can't really remember now. They'd finished, and it didn't really be it wasn't a part of my life anymore after that. The only way it was a part of my life was in the JRPG sense. And for me, because I'm actually 2 years younger than Eric, for me, it was Final Fantasy VII, which obviously came out, I'm assuming, like a couple of years after Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah, it did.
And that one just like, and then I got each Final Fantasy after that. And I absolutely loved, again, like you said, the matureness of it, the adult content, the the thrill of the storylines that they were creating. And that is kind of like anime in a sense, like you said as well, in that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, anime is like cartoons, but there is a huge world of difference between cartoons and anime, as we know. So basically, when I was 25 years old, something happened to me. This was December 2015. And basically, where I was working at my prison in the area as a prison officer or prison guard for the US or whatever, I was stabbed by an inmate breaking up a fight. And I ended up having like 3 weeks off so that the wound in my arm could heal. And during that time, I came across, I can't remember which anime it was, but it was just something that was on IGN. And I remember thinking, oh, maybe I'll just like get that and I'll watch it. And again, I really wish I could remember what it was, but it was this anime. I only watched a couple of episodes of it, and then suddenly that kind of kickstarted the whole thing for me. And while I was going through this like really horrible period in my life, which started of April last year, where in short, basically I was accused of getting the person that stabbed me beaten up. And I can say this because it was all in the national newspapers and stuff in the UK, so it's all completely public. And basically, long story short, they charged me with the crime, and it went on for like over a year. And then this May, I got not guilty. And during this time, I came across My Love Story right in the early part of last year, and Ora Monogatari, and I absolutely loved it. It was like a really humorous story. It was bright, it was loving, and it just like this darkness inside of me because of everything I was going through and everything I might lose in my life was kind of being offset by this anime, and I just threw myself into it. And then one after another, I watched Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, I watched Attack on Titan, Sword Art Online, and my life just utterly became anime.
Dude, you were blazing through anime, man. Like, I remember because you asked me when that was going on, you're like, Eric, what's some good anime? And I was like, oh yeah, like Code Geass, like Full Metal Alchemist. You're like, the next day, like 2 days later, you're like, I watched him. I was like, holy shit. Whoa.
What's next? Yeah, so basically, after that, I originally had a Let's Play channel. That's originally what Anime Sins was for about 4 years. And then I suddenly was checking out these YouTubers who were into like anime reactions and stuff like that. And I thought to myself, oh, like maybe people would be interested in seeing what my reactions are and reviews for anime and stuff like that. So I started doing that. And then I came across Cinema Sins. And I don't know if you guys have seen the channel. But I really, really loved the humorous take on it. And I thought, what about if I did this for anime and then I turned it into Anime Sins? So really, in short, it's such a big part of my life because while I was going through one of the worst periods in my entire existence, anime was basically keeping me up, keeping me, stable, as it were, like emotionally. Yeah. So I've got a lot. I owe a lot to anime like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which means so much to me. And while we're talking about favorite anime, that is my favorite anime. Nice. And funny enough, I actually managed to get my wife into it as well, because originally she was like, oh, anime is cartoons. And I was like, well, why don't you watch this? She watched Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. She loved it. All 64 episodes, I think it is. Yeah, and then it just kicked off from there. So that's really why it's such a big part of my life.
Yeah, like when you're passionate about something, you want to share it with everyone else. So like I got my sister into anime, and I'm like my dad from time to time, he'll watch some anime too. Like he watched Death Note, Yuramangan, and the Cowboy Bebop movie.
Wow, that's impressive. You got your dad into it. That's cool.
That is rare.
Yeah. My dad, he watches a lot of Japanese live action films. So he was already fine with like anime and stuff like that. And he like loves violence as well. So, anime can be pretty violent. So
your
dad sounds cool.
Your dad sounds like because I don't know. How old's your dad, by the way?
He's 56.
Because, like during the 80s, I was getting into anime like early 90s, right? But we did rent some early 80s anime, and there were some very violent anime. So like, just, talking
Oh,
about maybe
yeah.
your dad being into anime at that time, like there were some that were extremely violent. Like my mom would rent them for us, but sometimes like a lot of the time she wouldn't even watch it with us. And me and my brother would just watch in horror. We're like, oh my god, it's post-apocalyptic, and we're seeing girls getting like ripped in half and stuff, and we're like, what is happening? I'm only 7 years old. What the fuck?
Like I said, you got a pretty cool mom, though.
Oh yeah, she was
Yeah.
great. She gave us a lot when it came to like gaming and anime, and she respected our wishes a lot. She'd be like, as long as you kids do well in school, and be like, okay, well, I guess for you, even though I don't like school, I guess so.
For you and for violent anime, I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, some of the violent anime was okay if it had a good story, but some of the violence was ridiculous. There's one called Ogre Slayer, where this woman gets impregnated by this ogre, and then the ogre baby like rips out of her stomach, but like these samurai are like, no, we have to kill it. She's like, it's my baby, as it like comes out, rips out of her stomach, and then they fight this like demon baby, and I was like, yeah, I was young, it was gross, it was really, probably scarred me a lot looking
I've
back
never
on it.
even heard of that, man. That's nuts.
Yeah, there was some really violent stuff, and it was all stuff that came out of the 80s, and early 90s too had some, but a lot of the 80s stuff was very violent. Another one's like Demon Man. Anyways, let's stop talking about flashbacks.
Triggers.
Intense.
Yeah, it's pretty intense stuff, and I was really young going through that too. So anyways, Sloan, what's your favorite anime of all time?
Well, my favorite anime of all time is Durara. I mean, I've seen
yeah, you
over.
said that already. Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I've seen by now a little over 200 anime, but I only have about 15 anime that I would say are my definite favorites. And my
Okay.
favorite list is different from what I believe to be the greatest. Because when you have favorites, you kind of ignore all the flaws. Like I recognize Durara has some flaws, and same with a couple of other of my favorite anime. But you kind of just ignore that because it touched you in some way.
Of course,
So how did that
art
work?
is completely subjective. Yeah, and I agree with you. Some of my favorite games people would look at and be like, graphics suck. What the fuck,
Yeah.
Yeah, Sloan, what about the Rara did you actually... What about that actually meant so much to you?
Well, I guess first would happen to be the timing. When I first watched it, at the time, all my friends turned against me and stuff, and then I had no friends for a good year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Oh,
And
nice.
the characters in Durara, I really loved how I love that it's an ensemble cast, and even though Ikebukuro, which is where it's set, is a real town and stuff, you get that in the anime. This is exactly how Ikebukuro might be, even though obviously there's no supernatural
Gangs and-
creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there might be gangs, but just not on that scale.
Yeah.
I really liked. I was sucked into the world, and in the second half, each character goes through their own dark problems, and their past comes back to get them. And I was just like, whoa, man, I can relate, and I fell in love with it. And
Sounded
then
like you were on weed when you were watching that. I can relate.
Nah, I was just depressed. I was just like, yeah, I get that. So, yeah. But then when I got out of my depressed state and stuff, season 2 was airing, and then that's around the time when I actually started making YouTube videos, and I just became passionate about the work, and I just fell in love with the anime even more. Since then, I learned more about good writing and things like that, because I was taking film classes and stuff like that. So then I started to appreciate it even more on a technical aspect, and I just love it. It's amazing.
That's great. And yeah, like you were saying, it is all about the characters. And I gotta say, in a lot of anime, some of the best anime, when you look at just the storyline without the characters, you're like, oh, it's kind of basic. But then it's just because the characters bring it to life so much that it becomes interesting. I mean, there are some anime that would still stand alone with their good stories, right? But I find the best ones, the ones that I hold dear anyways, are always the ones with the relatable characters and the ones that I could really put myself in their shoes, right?
Yeah, very true.
I guess I'll jump into my favorite anime that fits perfectly with what I'm about to say with why I like my favorite anime. So
Yeah, go on.
basically when I was young, and as well, I mean, I think a lot of our favorite animes are when we first get into anime, I have to say. But I was in anime for a few years before this became my favorite, but my favorite is Neon Genesis Evangelion. And the reason why it's my favorite is when I was watching it, I was the exact same age as the Eva pilots that are in the anime itself. They're all 14 years old. And, you know, Evangelion in an anime, I mean, it is like, it's big mecha fighting against angels that are sent by who knows, probably God to, you know, wipe out humanity and cause the third impact. It's like a really intense story that has very real characters that are put into these situations. And a lot of people, when they watch Evangelion, they complain. They're like, oh, Shinji, you know, he's such a pussy and he's crying and, you know, he should just get into the mech and fight those angels. I'm like, he's a 14-year-old boy whose father was never there for him. And it's like, hey, you got to go save the world now. Like, get into the mech. Come on, Shinji. And he starts crying and people are like, oh, Shinji's a pussy. I'm like, no, that's like very relatable to me. Yeah, it's very real. And I was young at the time. And at the time I was, I wouldn't say being forced into doing stuff I didn't want to do, but I was put into sports I didn't really want to do at the time. And, you know, the whole parents forcing you to do stuff, that really, like, pulled at my heartstrings when I was watching Shinji go through a similar situation like that. And it really drew me to him as a character. And I really kind of have more appreciation for what Shinji went through during... I was putting myself in his shoes during the whole entire time I was watching it. And I really... Like, the mech fighting is super cool as well. It's really intense. But I really like it for the very real characters and... how while I was watching it, I was just putting myself into Shinji's shoes, and I was like, this could very well be me. And if I was in that situation, what would I do? And it was an emotional roller coaster what I was going through when I was watching it. I've never felt that way watching any other anime before. So that's why it was my favorite. Yeah.
I love hearing about this particular topic from both of you as to like why it meant so much to you. Because as you said, we can always say this anime is brilliant. It's got action, it's got romance, it's got comedy, whatever. But the reason why it means so much to us in particular is always unique. And that's something that I really have loved hearing about from both of you. Mm-hmm. And it's going to lead me on to talking about mine in particular, which is something I haven't actually told anyone but my wife.
I'm excited.
And yeah, well, it's depressing. It's a similar thing to Sloan's really, and that's when I was watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. During this period in my life where I was accused of doing this violent crime, and I knew I didn't do it, but it's like. Everyone else was kind of like doubting it or whatever, like aside from my wife and close family or my brother and stuff like that, who all believed me from the get-go because they know who I am as a person. But basically, like for one reason or another, my very close friends dropped off and I ended up having nothing to do with them. They started treating me like shit and not caring a whit about anything that I was going through. And, at the time I was facing 16 years in prison. Yeah, that was. I was charged with 2 counts, and the one was lesser, one was more, and the lesser one would have netted 5 years, and the worse one would have netted 16 years. For my particular situation, because the guy was a prisoner, and because I was a prison officer, and when they go through all of the rules, even though I never touched anyone, I was never accused of hitting anyone or whatever. That would have netted 16 years. So it was this. As you can imagine, incredibly depressing, dark time in my life. And then my friends stopped talking to me and my work colleagues had nothing to do with me. And some that were going to help me suddenly decided that they didn't want to help me. And they were really messing me about. And during this time when I was watching Full Metal Alchemist, the reason why that in particular meant so much to me, aside from the amazing storyline and characters and, bubbliness of it, that sort of kept me afloat, like I said, emotionally, it was the last, 2 episodes of the series where, spoiler alert, but it's been out nearly 10 years now, so everyone should know it, when they are fighting Father at the end and the music is playing and it's so emotional as Ed is ripping his arm off of the the concrete where it's stuck in there, and
intense.
his brother sacrifices his soul to give him his arm. And it was the fact that everyone was fighting. You know, all the soldiers were rushing out, they were attacking, they were all working together, and then Roy comes out and he's back and they're fighting, and it was all of this about all of these good people fighting this one bad thing together. This is how it started changing in my mind, and it became my fight against this mistruth that was being put out there, this lie about me. And it was me fighting just like they were all fighting. Father, I was fighting this lie. And I remember it's like quite an emotional moment for me. But when I was outside of the courtroom and the jury were deliberating, I was like in tears outside the room, just silently by myself, because none of my family were in that area. They were all in a separate building where they could be watching in the courtroom. And I had like my head in my hands, and I was sat there with my head down, and I just imagined that I had Roy there and Ed and Alphonse, and they were all sort of like there behind me, as it were, like supporting me. And then when I went back in that room and they said not guilty on both counts, I just wept, and I just felt, and that has given me such a connection to Full Metal Alchemist that I will never forget for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Yeah, that's an incredible story, dude.
Incredible origin story. Like, honestly, that's awesome.
How I became the superhero.
Man, you're almost making me tear up here. Holy shit, man.
I was just about to applaud. Like,
yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know like it had that. I knew you fell in love with anime during that time, like you rekindled your love for it, but I didn't know it was that strong. You know, like that's really cool.
Yeah, there's a deep connection there. So I have a lot to owe to anime and that, because really it was just my wife, my brother, and anime that just kept me afloat for 2 years and kept me sane and kept me somewhat happy in that. And of course, video games, you know, like The Witcher 3 and like Persona 4 had a big part of that as well. But just anime is just like much, much bigger reason for it. And it's the reason I think I came out the other end basically the same man that I went into it as, because as you can imagine, going through what was at the time, I guess, like 16 months of pretty much non-stop depression can really have an effect on you as a person. And to be able to come out the other end still like a happy, cheeky guy and be the same husband to my wife and that, that's the reason why I think I owe a great deal to anime.
Well, you're giving back in a big way. A lot of people love your content and your channel's growing, right? So it's good. Yeah.
Oh, it's been a really wonderful process doing all of this. It's meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
Well, so I hope I didn't depress the room.
No, it's more it's more motivational than depressing. It's more like, okay, I'm gonna go and just take on all my problems right now. I'm just gonna go off, make a big checklist, life problems, and fix them all immediately. Like, if you can go through that, I can fix like my New Year's resolutions if I got to get off my ass and exercise more. You know.
Of course. You can do anything as long as you keep yourself positive. That's what I learned throughout the process. Keeping myself positive and looking at the through the end of the tunnel all the time, rather than getting lost in the darkness. Yeah. You can overcome any obstacle. I really do believe that.
Yeah, well, hearing your story makes me believe that too.
Yeah.
Good.
Let's end it on a good note, guys.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Yeah, and I think that is a good time to end it. We have been doing the podcast for about 40 minutes now. Okay. So yeah, that was it was really fun, and Sloan, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being here.
Oh yeah, thanks for inviting me, guys. It was awesome.
You were a fantastic first guest, so thank you so much for coming on.
And if you ever want to come back,
you're more than welcome.
Let me know. Yeah, just let me know.
All right.
Okay, guys. So before we end it, I just want to quickly say, as I forgot to say at the beginning, is that this podcast is actually being sponsored by Hend Accessories. So if you guys want to get 10% off of like gaming console skins and unique joypad covers and stuff like that, then you guys can just put in the code ASINS into the coupon code when you are checking out, and you will get 10% off of your purchase. And I seriously recommend you guys check it out. The website will be on the screen as I'm saying this, and it will also be in the description below with a clickable link as well for you guys on mobiles and iPads. And also, guys, I just want to thank Daniel so much for doing the artwork for this channel and doing the background that you're watching on this video right now. He's so talented, so thank you so much, Daniel, for doing that.
And also, if you think that we are charming and impressionable people, please subscribe to our YouTube channels. The links will be in the description down below.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right.
Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Otaku Talk! Signing off!
Signing off.
Oh,